Nothing can be compared to those gifts you brought and fed the gods with. It's so succulent and satisfying that the gods have demanded for more. Draw closer to me, you pretty thing. The gods are asking for more. Akra, the eyes of the gods, said to Nene. Nene smiled widely and drew closer to him, rubbing his chest and head, saying to him, I know the gods would love every bit of it. This is just the beginning. Tell the gods I will overdose them with this pretty body, she said, grabbing Akra's hand to feel the warmth of her body. Akra was out of control. He smiled sheepishly, grabbing Nene, saying, For you have so pleased the gods. The gods have promised to do for you all you have been asking of them. They are ready to keep assisting and doing more for you if you keep feeding them this beautiful food every 4 market days. Nene smiled and told him to say no more because the gods have not seen anything yet. When it got dark, she sneaked out of Akra's house and headed home. She was happy when she got home and saw that their husband was already asleep. At least nobody would question her whereabouts. She could see her co-wife Adamma and her 2 sons eating and chanting happily inside their hut. She stood looking at them wickedly from her hut. She snapped her fingers, saying to herself, Don't worry, we shall see. When she climbed her bed, remembering the great day she had with their community eyes of the gods, she couldn't help but smile. She felt fulfilled and powerful. The following morning, she heard her co-wife Adamma knocking on her door, calling her, Nene, Nene, is everything okay with you? She got up from her bed and went to open the door. She saw their husband Ude and Adamma holding the farming tools. She also noticed that Adamma's children had also swept her own portion of the compound. Ude asked her where she was last night because he checked up on her before he went to bed. She told their husband Ude she went to her mother's place to collect some herbs because she wasn't feeling too fine. Adamma felt pity on her and asked her how she was feeling and whether she had had something to eat that morning. When she said no, she hadn't eaten. Her co-wife Adamma went to bring food for her. They told her not to worry about following them to the farm, that she should stay home and look after herself, and also keep eyes on Adamma's 2 sons. Ude and Adamma left to the farm. Nene laughed and muttered, stupid people, when Ude and Adamma left. She devoured the food Adamma had given her. She called Adamma's eldest son Ebuka to prepare to follow her to the market, that she had something to sell. Ebuka was happy he would be going to the market. He ran to change his clothes. He told his younger brother, who was feeling bad, to stop feeling bad, that next time would be his turn. He asked him to stay inside the hut and wait for him, that he would be back soon. Shortly, Nene and Ebuka were on their way to the market. That day was Eke, their community market day. The marketplace is usually filled with people from their community and other neighboring communities. As they were approaching the market, Nene asked Ebuka to wait for her, let her quickly rush inside the bush to bring what she wanted to sell. She rushed nearby the bush and untied a goat that was tied to a tree. She gave Ebuka the goat to carry. Ebuka was happy. He loved the fun he was getting from dragging the goat forward with a rope tied on the goat's neck. Immediately they entered the marketplace. Nene started shouting and crying, Thief! 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 Distancing herself from Ebuka. Ebuka was confused. He ran and held Nene, but Nene pushed him away, crying and pointing at him. Thief! Thief! He is a thief! He is a thief! He has stolen a goat. People left their goods and gathered, beating and dragging Ebuka on the rough ground. He was so scared, crying and calling on Nene. Mother! Mother! Please tell them I am not a thief. They are hitting me so hard. It's hurting. Mother, please. Ebuka was crying in pain and saying. The people refused to hear his pleas. Some were saying, imagine what a boy like this would do when he becomes an adult. Nene watched in satisfaction as Ebuka's clothes soaked in blood. Some persons in the market refused to believe that the young boy would steal a goat. They were trying to stop those beating him, but it was fruitless. Ebuka was dragged all the way to the palace. When Ude and Adamma got home from the farm, their youngest son told them, that Nene had taken Ebuka to the market. Adama was not so happy that Nene left only the small boy all alone in the house and left with Ebuka. They were busy washing themselves when one of Ude's friends ran into the compound and informed them that the villagers were about to beat their son Ebuka to death because he stole in the market. He told them they had taken him to the palace. Both Adama and Ude were shocked. They cried and ran all the way to the palace with the little boy running behind them. When people brought Ebuka to the palace, the king came out and asked everyone to let Ebuka alone. Ebuka's body was already swollen and soaked up in blood. Ude and Adama's heart dropped when they saw their son Ebuka in such state. They rushed to him. Ebuka weakly stretched out his hands to them, saying, "Papa, Papa, I feel like I'm dying. Am I dying, Papa?" Ude's heart was shattered. He didn't mind he was a man. He cried so loud, grabbing his son from the hard floor. He carried him on his laps, sitting on the ground before the king. The king shook his head. He felt so much pity for the boy and his father, but he must do the right thing. Justice must be served. He must not appeal to the pity. He asked the villagers, "Which of you caught the young man stealing, and what did he steal?" People pointed at Nene, who stepped out crying. Ude and Adama were shocked when Nene stepped forward. Nene avoided their gaze. She cried and told the king that Ebuka was her stepson and she had gone to the market that morning with him. While in the market, Ebuka told her to wait for him, that he wanted to ease himself. She waited for Ebuka but became worried after what seemed like half an hour and Ebuka was not back. She was surprised when Ebuka showed up carrying a goat, asking her to sell it for him and use the money to buy a toy he had been pointing at since they entered the market. And when she inquired where she had gotten the goat from, he said it's from the shrine, that it's one of the goats people bring to the shrine for the gods. And that was when she let out a cry, saying "thief," before people gathered. The king bent his head and thought for a while. Then he raised his head and asked her, "You said the boy here is your stepson?" Nene said yes. "Do you have a child of your own?" Nene said no. He continued, "When you found out your stepson here took a goat from the shrine, what did you do? Why didn't you try to conceal it and protect him, since you were the only one aware of what he had done?" The king asked Nene, "My king, it was because the goat belongs to the gods and I was so scared of the wrath of the gods." The king waved his head and asked her to stand aside. Then he turned to Ebuka and asked him to tell him all that happened. The little boy, who was very weak to talk, only said to the king, "Mother here gave me the goat to carry," pointing his little fingers at Nene. The king asked for the chief priest, the eyes of the gods, to be brought to the shrine, to be brought to the palace. Akra, the eyes of the gods, arrived in short time. The king asked him to consult and commune with the gods and find out what really happened. The eyes of the gods started his incantations, while the villagers watched. In between, he shouted, pointing at Ebuka, saying, "You evil child, how dare you steal from the gods?" People shouted, "Wonder shall never end." The king, filled with pity, looked at Ebuka, for he knows what awaits him. Akura, the eyes of the gods, continued, "You little boy, who instructed you to come to the shrine and steal a food meant for the gods?" He turned to the king and said to him, "The gods are angry. The sacred shrine has been desecrated, and we must appease the gods of our land by doing the needful, according to our tradition." Ude and Adama started crying, begging the king to please pardon their son, that their son had never stolen before in his life. Some villagers joined Ude and his wife Adama in pleading with the king, while some were cursing the little boy, telling him he would soon be sent to the hell where he belongs. Everybody was waiting for the king to speak. The king stood up from his seat, raising his offer up, the staff of authority, saying, "For the gods are wiser. For the gods see things we cannot see. For the gods are just. We mortals must follow their leads. According to our tradition and culture, punishment for theft is death. And the boy here, not only that he stole, but he stole from the gods and desecrated our sacred shrine. He must be buried alive beside the shrine. His death would sound a warning to others who derive joy in taking what do not belong to them. This is my final judgment. Now take the boy away and bury him alive. The palace divided into two. Some were crying while some were cursing the little boy. Nene, who was standing by the corner, was happy and satisfied. She followed the people who were taking the boy to the place he would be buried alive. Adamma and Ude were running after the guards that were taking Ebuka to the shrine. Ebuka was crying, extending his hands, calling on his parents to save him. When they got to the shrine, the eyes of the gods showed them a place he would be buried alive. After the grave was dug, little Ebuka was pushed inside, and he was covered up with the sand they dug out. The villagers scattered. People were going back to their houses, discussing the ugly incident that just took place. Some were feeling pity for Ude and Adamma. Ude and Adamma, together with their little boy, Ebuka's younger brother, refused to leave the graveside. They were crying and calling on their son Ebuka. Some kind-hearted ones were consoling them. Nene left with the rest of the villagers. She went to spend the rest of the day and night at her mother's place. She doesn't want to be faced with accusing looks from Ude and Adamma. Night was fast approaching, but Ude and his wife Adamma and their son were still with their buried son. They refused to leave the grave. Some kind-hearted villagers took them home. When nightfall came, there was this unusual coldness and sadness that spread throughout the kingdom that people could not explain. They were having a restless and troubled night. The king kept rolling and rolling on his bed, unable to sleep. His wife had tried severally to make him sleep, but still he couldn't. He told his wife that there was this thing about the buried young boy he could not explain. He feels that the boy was wrongly accused, but the gods said otherwise. It was a night of sorrow and mourning for Ude and his family. Their friends and well-wishers stayed with them throughout the night, scared that they might do something crazy if left alone. The villagers were finding it hard to sleep as well. The picture of Ebuka being buried alive kept playing in their heads. The whole kingdom was filled with horror when they were jolted off from their beds with sound of thunder and lightning. The sound and bang were so loud that they thought it was the end of the world. The thunder and lightning kept striking non-stop. Fear gripped Akora, the eyes of the gods. He shouted and asked himself what he had done. He screamed so loud, asking himself, "What have I done? What have I done to myself? Oh God, what is this atrocity that I have committed?" His wife ran into his room when he heard him screaming. His wife watched as thunder struck him dead. Immediately, his body turned black like a coal. It was a terrifying night. People in their homes held on so tight to themselves. They were afraid to open their doors. Ude and his wife, Adamma, together with their few friends and family that were with them, were terrified when they heard a knock on the door that midnight. They all fixed their gaze at the door in horror. But the knock kept on coming. Ude went to the door and opened it. Behold, his son Ebuka was there. Everybody in the room ran as fast as their legs could carry them, including Ude and his wife Adamma, except for Ebuka's little brother, who cried and rushed to meet his brother Ebuka. When they saw the little boy hugging his brother Ebuka so tight, they began to come out from their hiding places. They couldn't believe their eyes. Some poured him sand and water, yet Ebuka remained where he was. Adamma grabbed his hand and hugged him so tight, crying. Gradually, others came, feeling Ebuka's body to make sure they were not dreaming. We didn't ask him what happened because they all saw him buried alive that afternoon. Ebuka told them how a mysterious old man, covered up in lightning, opened the grave and led him out and brought him home. They couldn't believe what they heard. They were also surprised when they saw that the wound he sustained from all the beatings were healed. It was then they realized that the gods took the fight upon themselves. Nene, who was in her mother's house, couldn't find peace. The happiness she thought she found earlier when Ebuka was buried alive was far gone from her. She would scream each time the thunder strikes on top of their roof. The mother and daughter held on so tight to themselves. Before Nene's eyes, her mother was struck dead by the thunder. Immediately, her mother's body turned black. She was so scared. She screamed and opened the door and ran outside. The thunder struck her with stroke. It was the longest night ever in the history of Ihe Kingdom. The people were glad when day broke. They found Nene in pain in her mother's compound. The story spread that Ebuka was alive. People flooded Ude's compound to see for themselves. The king was not left out. When the king arrived and saw Ebuka, he screamed so loud, saying, "Truly, some are the gods' choosing. You are a chosen son of the gods." Nene was brought to him in Ude's compound, where she confessed what she did and how she got the chief priest, the eyes of the gods, to stood with her. She asked Ude and Adama to forgive her, that it was her mother's ideas. The king gave orders that Nene should be taken to the grave that was dug for Ebuka and be buried alive. He asked the people to take Akra, the eyes of the god's body, and that of Nene's mother's body to evil forest, for they do not deserve a proper burial. It's extremely important to put envy and jealousy in check, because when you let them to take control of you, they will turn you to a really bad person. What other moral lesson would you say you learned from this our video? Let us know in the comment section. Also, kindly tell us where you're watching this video from. Leave a like for us as well. And thank you so much for your support and time. Bye.